time offer. So go make your mind up before our time's up. Say you better start winding it up because the party's almost over. And if you should know, it's a little bit lower now. See, I would do, oh, if I could do, I would do, oh, anything spontaneously. You know I would. Oh, and I could prove it. Oh, that I'll do anything spontaneously.
Hey, Evan. Good afternoon, everybody. Wow, great turnout. Thanks a lot for coming. I'm Adam Taggart. I'm VP of Marketing here at Yahoo. Just have a couple of quick prepared remarks before we bring up today's speaker. It is my great honor to introduce today's visiting speaker. He's the second invited to campus as part of Yahoo's Outside In program. I wanted just to give you guys a quick little background as to how Chris is coming to speak here today. I started at Yahoo a little bit over 9 years ago. I started as the only marketing person for Yahoo Finance. Incidentally, they're the sponsor of today's Outside In program, so a big thanks to them and to Steve Schultz and his team for making this happen. A few years after I joined, my wife and I started looking for a home for our growing family. And we were shocked by how expensively priced real estate was out here in the Bay Area, and I'm sure that's a pretty common experience here for many of you. To understand why prices were so high, I started researching the housing market on the internet. Maybe I was just missing something that was really obvious to everybody else, because they seemed really happy to take on mortgages. It just seemed like staggering sums to me. And I soon found my way to sites like Patrick.net and a few others with even more alarming names like Housing Panic or Dr. Housing Bubble. But, you know, these were the only people that were speaking words that actually made sense to me. I mean, they actually had real logic behind their opinions. And they did warn that there was an unsustainable bubble forming in housing prices, not just here, but around the country. And those sites then led me to others that were more focused on the general economy, explaining how these rapidly rising housing prices were simply the predictable result of faulty economic and monetary policy from Washington, as well as out-of-control financing practices that were going on Wall Street. It became really clear that there was a lot more to be concerned about here than simply the price of a house. All asset values, like Yahoo stock, the job market, and really the very future of the US dollar were all at risk, and unfortunately still are in many ways. And as an individual investor and a parent interested in building a secure future for my family, I was just overwhelmed by this all. I mean, how was I supposed to understand all of this? And what the heck was I supposed to do? So during this time, I was directed to chrismartenson.com. There I watched the Crash Course, which is hands down one of the best tutorials for explaining the macro trends that are going on right now in our economy. Trained as a scientist and just a natural teacher, Chris produced the Crash Course specifically to help regular people understand what's going on and where things are headed, or likely headed. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. He predicts things are going to get pretty scary if we continue on the current trajectory that we're on here. Even after the severe stock market crash in late 2008, the ensuing recession and the national correction in housing prices, our nation still hasn't addressed the root problems that cause these things, namely our debt-based economy, our overdependency on cheap oil, and depletion of essential global resources. But there are definitely steps each of us as individuals can take to protect our assets and our families, and in the process help make our communities and our country a better place. That's why we invited Chris to come speak here now, to educate and to offer constructive options for you to consider during these turbulent times. As Chris likes to say, the one thing we can be sure of is that the next 20 years will be completely unlike the past 20 years. We'll leave plenty of time for Q&A afterwards, as you're sure to have lots of questions after hearing what Chris has to say. Again, I'd like to thank the Outside In program and our sponsors for making this event possible and for helping bring Chris's message to millions, not just to us here in the room today, but to millions through Yahoo Finance. Now, please join me in welcoming Dr. Chris Martenson.
Wow, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Yahoo Finance, for bringing me here. Anybody, if you're on the back side there, you might want to come so you can see, because it's got a lot of visuals in it. So yes, I'm going to talk to you today about some things that at first blush are going to possibly seem frightening, scary, challenging. But really, I want to be clear about something. The story that I have to tell is really a story of opportunity. And it's about having options. This story that I'm going to tell you now in 45-minute form is a condensation of 3.5 hours of material that's the crash course, which is freely available at my website, other places. It's up on YouTube. It's available in DVD form. It's on ISO downloads on BitTorrent. It's everywhere if you want to get it. And that itself, that 3.5 hours, is a crushing down of about 2 days' worth of lecture material I used to give to very unfortunate audiences a while ago. And that itself was about 4 or 5 years of inquiry and study that was much like an Adam's story, was kicked off by a growing sense of dis-ease that I had, that something was not quite right in the national narrative. Something about our story in the economy was not quite right. Now, I came to the story potentially a little bit early, and I definitely was a little bit ahead of the curve, but this story has allowed me to make changes in my own life that have been very profitable, that allow me to sleep well, have brought me relief, and all of these things are the things that I want to help bring to you. I have a gift to give. The most important gift I can give you is the gift of time. Time to adjust to what I think is going to be a fairly comprehensive, possibly disruptive set of changes that are in front of us. But they don't have to be bad. We still have time. The sun comes up. We have opportunities. We can do a lot with the future. So what really drives me is that I want to create a world worth inheriting. I have children, and I really care about the direction we're going in. So if you're like me, you've probably been noticing some things going on in the news. This is in happier days. This could have been as much as 50, 60 days ago. And here's what happens when a very complex project, pushing the edge of the technical envelope, runs into a combination of technical errors and human errors. And it's resulted in and is resulting in the largest environmental catastrophe in our nation's history. And this story is actually connected to this story if we look at it the right way. So this is riots in Greece. So I don't need to pick on Greece, though. Perhaps we could talk about Ireland or Spain or Portugal. These are all countries that are now demonstrably on our radar map as countries that have passed from insolvency and are passing into what we might know as bankruptcy. There's sovereign default risk. But this same story could be told about the UK or France or Japan or even the United States. And so the fact that it seems to be constrained in Greece at this point in time is, to me, not comforting. It's actually a warning sign, something that we could use to observe and ask questions about our own situation here in this country. And perhaps we noticed that the stock market crested out in 2007 and took a pretty harrowing plunge down into March of 2009. And we feel better because it's been rising for a while. And it rose for a little bit over a year. And most recently, it's gotten volatile again to the downside. We don't know exactly where this is going to go, but it's been certainly going up and down a lot. All of these things are connected. And I want to talk to you about how they're connected, because it's in that story that we gain a little bit of an opportunity to illuminate the path, look at the future, and potentially see what's coming ahead. And that's why I'm here today, to talk about how we might do that. So